All right, shalom family. I hope all is well with everybody. This is your brother Kaniba coming at you with another video. And this video is going to be titled Log BaOmer 2021, The May Queen and the Horn God. Now I know that may seem like a weird setup for the title, but there's a reason why I titled this video that way. And it's based off of the events that just happened in our homeland of Israel this past Friday on April 30th. Okay. Now, it just so happens that this past Friday, May 30th, was the eve of Beltane. Okay. And there was actually a catastrophe that happened in the land of Israel on that particular day, on the eve of Beltane. And according to my critique, and again, it's my critique, I feel like this was the celebration of Beltane that they were doing. And it was also a sacrifice for Beltane as well. All right. So now let's get into it and see what we got. All right. So this is an article from USA Today about what happened on April 30th, which was this past Friday, that happened on this Jewish religious festival, which they call Lag BaOmer. Okay. And it reads, at least 45 killed after stampede at religious gathering in Israel. Several Americans among the dead. Okay, so here we see it says at least 45 dead. Again, 4 plus 5, as we know, is 9. Now, if you watched my previous series about the movie Bad Boys, which was titled Bad Boys for Life, Mamba for Life, I actually break down the number 9. The number 9 represents the divine feminine. It's for the mother goddess. Okay. And as we go through this video or this series, but I don't want it to be too long. Hopefully it'll only be 2 videos. But as we go through this, you're going to see what I mean by the May Queen. That's part of the title of this video, the May Queen. Okay. Again, this 45 is 4 plus 5, as we know, is 9. Okay. It represents the divine feminine. All right. Scrolling down a bit, the article reads, a stampede at a religious festival attended by tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews in northern Israel killed at least 44 people and injured about 150 early Friday, medical officials said, April 30th. Continuing on, efforts to identify victims and connect loved ones with missing relatives will continue into the weekend after a deadly stampede at a religious celebration in northern Israel killed at least 45 people early Friday. Scrolling down a bit more, and it reads, a State Department spokesperson told USA Today multiple American citizens were among the dead. 4 Americans were killed, according to a partial list of names published Saturday. The youngest victim was 9 years old. How about that? Can't make this up, people. But reading on, in what was one of the country's deadliest civilian disasters, about 100,000 people were crowded by Mount Meron early Friday for the celebration of Lag BaOmer, a holiday that, among other things, commemorates Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, a 2nd century sage and mystic who is buried at the base of the mountain. Zakah, one of the country's ambulance service, confirmed the death toll had risen to 45. Again, another allusion to the number 9. Around 150 people were injured with 6 in critical condition. Again, another esoteric number, the number 6. And then listing that 150 people were injured. Again, 1 plus 5 plus 0 equals 6. But continuing on, said Zaki Heller, a spokesman for the Megan David Adam Rescue Service. Okay. Continuing on, it says an 18-year-old Bergenfield, New Jersey man was among the dead, according to his family. Again, they had to list the 18-year-old because the number 18 is an allusion to 666. All right. But continuing on, it reads, Donnie Morris was at Mount Moran for the celebration of Lag BaOmer, a festival celebrated at the foot of the mountain each year, when he was killed in the stampede. The gathering drew over 100,000 people and was the first legal religious ceremony since the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, you can't script this any better, can you? But continuing on, we are all shocked and devastated. There are no words, said Rabbi Yakel Morris, the victim's uncle, who confirmed the young man's death on Friday, a.k.a. Fria's Day or Frigga's Day for the Mother Goddess. I'm telling you, all this lined up too perfectly this year, and I'm going to prove that further as we go further into this video. Okay? Continuing on, and it reads, Morris was studying in Israel during a gap year after graduating from the Marcia Stern Talmudic Academy in Manhattan, the rabbi said. The Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey tweeted their condolences to the family Friday. May Donnie's memory only be for a blessing, the tweet said. Scrolling down a bit, and it reads, Our embassy and Department of State will provide all necessary support to any U.S. citizen and their family members affected by this sad event, President Biden said in a statement Friday. The people of the United States and Israel are bound together by our families, our faiths, and our histories. That's interesting. And we will stand with our friends. Zaka spokesman Madi Buckchin said families were being notified and the bodies were being taken to a single location for identification. He said he expected the bodies to be buried before sundown of the Jewish Sabbath, when funerals do not take place. Bodies were later taken to Israel's Central Forensic Pathology Institute. That's very interesting. So they held this festival, this pagan festival known as Lag BaOmer. They held that on the Sabbath or the Shabbat, but but they're not gonna bury folks on the Shabbat. I mean, both of them is off. Anyway, continuing on. The Times of Israel reported Friday 32 people had been identified and 22 funerals held. Victim identification is expected to resume after the Sabbath, the news outlet reported. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Friday briefly visited Mount Moran and said it was one of the worst disasters that has befallen the state of Israel. A day of mourning would be Sunday, which again, you could not have scripted this better. This day of mourning is going to be on Sunday in veneration of the sun. Okay, which that within itself ties into the narrative, because we're going to go into Beltane and we're going to go into the May Queen later on in this video or the next video. Okay. So continuing on, it says a day of mourning would be Sunday, Netanyahu said. Scrolling down, the article reads, President Joe Biden said he was heartbroken and had called Netanyahu to offer support. The people of the United States and Israel are bound together by our families, our faiths, and our histories, and we will stand with our friends, he said. According to the witnesses and video, The stampede began as a large number of people in a narrow tunnel-like passage began falling on top of each other near the end of the walkway. Witnesses said some fell on a slippery staircase. Okay. So let's get more information on this pagan festival that they call Lag BaOmer. Okay, because that's exactly what it is. It's pagan. It has nothing to do with Torah. Okay, and it has nothing to do with the Most High. So let's get into it. All right, so this is information on the pagan festival that's celebrated in Israel today. That's known as Lag BaOmer. Okay, and it reads, Lag BaOmer, also Lag BaOmer, is a Jewish religious holiday celebrated on the 33rd day of the counting of Omer. Let's pause right there. The fact that this festival takes place on the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer lets me know that this 9 times out of 10 was a sacrifice. What happened on the eve of Beltane, because it was a sacrifice for Beltane. Okay, and the counting of the Omer, all that is the days leading up to the Pentecost, the Feast of Weeks. Okay, Pentecost happens 50 days after the Passover, so that's what the counting of the Omer is, the days leading up to Pentecost. Okay, and this pagan festival actually happens on the 33rd day of the counting of Omer. That part has nothing to do with Torah or Tanakh, which is the Old Testament. Has nothing to do with that. Okay, so continuing on, it reads, which occurs on the 18th day of the Hebrew month of Iyar. Now, again, the 18th day, that number 18 is an allusion to 666. Okay, and it happens on the month of Iyar, the 18th day of the month of Iyar. Okay, so now let's click on Iyar and see what that actually is in English, because that's actually Hebrew for Nisan. Okay, let's look it up. So this is info on the month Iyar, which is also known as Nisan. Okay, I'm not going to get too far into it. I was just showing this to give clarity that the month of Iyar is also known as Nisan. Okay, now this is very important because if you looked at my series, Bad Boys for Life, Mamba for Life, I actually touched on the word Nisan. Okay, because as we see here, it can be spelled with either one S or two S's, which typically is spelled with two S's. So I bring all that up to say this. The word Nisan has a numerical value when you go into the gematria. Now, let's take a look at what it comes out to be when you add it up. All right. Okay, so this is what we come out with when we type in the word Nisan in the gematria calculator. And we see that it has a numerical value of 76. Okay, now 76, as we already know, represents the Capricorn. It represents Saturn, or the Capricorn, which is the goat. Okay, which is Pan. Now, why is this important? Because Pan is another manifestation of the so-called horn god. Okay, and as I already stated, the title of this video is Lag BaOmer, the May Queen and the Horn God. Okay, so the fact that this particular pagan festival that takes place in Israel every year, the fact that it happens on the 18th day of the month of Iyar, which is Nisan, it lets me further know that this was scripted perfectly. The way that Lag BaOmer landed on the eve of Beltane this year because it doesn't land on the same day every year. But this year was perfect. Okay. It landed on the eve of Beltane, which is May 1st. This happened on April 30th, that Friday. Okay. And then Beltane this year was on Saturday. Okay. Saturday is in reference to Saturn. Again, this is why you get the number 76. It all landed too perfectly this year. And that's why I say those people that died there, it's very little doubt in my mind that that was a sacrifice. All right. So getting back to the article on BaOmer, I want to deal with the etymology part since we're dealing with the numerical values of different words. OK, so I want to deal with the etymology part. Then I'm going to scroll back up and pick up where we left off at. OK, so now I want to show where the number 33 comes from when you're dealing with the BaOmer. And this part of the article reads, BaOmer is Hebrew for 33rd day in the Omer. The Hebrew letter Lamed, or L, which is the English L, because as I already stated in my series, Bad Boys for Life, Mamba for Life, I think it was the first part, that in Hebrew, each Hebrew character has a numerical value. Okay. And the Lamed actually has a numerical value of 30. So, which is what the article says here. It says has the numerical value of 30. And the Gimel, or which is the English G, has the numerical value of 3. Okay, so when you add the Lamed and the Gimel together, that equals 33. This is where you get the word log. Okay, and BaOmer, it literally means 33rd day in the Omer. Okay. So it continues on and it says a vowel sound is conventionally added for pronunciation purposes. Because again, in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, there are no vowels. Okay. You getting these vowels, these vowel points, which is known as the Masoretic text, that's made up. That came somewhere around between the 6th and 8th century. OK, the vowel system was actually forced on us by the Greeks. OK, but in our original language, ancient Hebrew, which we call today Lashawan Quadash, there are no vowels. There's only 2 distinct vowel sounds, which is the A and the I. OK, so scrolling back up a bit, I'm going to pick up right here in the article on the BaOmer, and it reads, this association has spawned several well-known customs and practices on BaOmer, including the lighting of bonfires. Pause right there. So if you know anything about Beltane, one of the crucial parts of Beltane is the lighting of bonfires. All right. And as we see here, the lighting of bonfires is also a part of the festival of BaOmer. All right. So now let's actually go down to the part in this article where it talks about the customs of BaOmer, and let's see how important lighting bonfires are when dealing with BaOmer. All right, let's get to it. So under the category of customs and practices concerning BaOmer, you have this part that deals with bonfires. Now let's read what it says. And it reads, the most well-known custom of BaOmer is the lighting of bonfires throughout Israel and worldwide wherever religious Jews can be found. Now let me tell you something. These are not real Jews. These are imposters. Okay. The real Jews of antiquity are the black people of the captivity. Okay. Throughout the world, really. Okay. But It's the people we know today as so-called African Americans, or so-called Jamaicans, West Indians, Haitians, or what have you. Those are the Jews of antiquity, okay? So I don't want people to get confused when it says Jews here. These are talking about the imposters that's in Israel today. But, that's a whole nother video. But just to get back on topic, it says that pretty much that the lighting of bonfires during Lag BaOmer is one of the most well-known customs in that particular festival, okay, which is pagan in roots, because we're going to see that it's linked to Beltane, which is definitely a pagan festival, okay? Continuing on, it says, in Moran, the burial place of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and his son Rabbi Eleazar, hundreds of thousands of Jews gathered throughout the night and day to celebrate with bonfires, torches, song, and feasting. This was a specific request by Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai of his students. Some say that as Bar Yochai gave spiritual light to the world with the revelation of the Zohar, bonfires are lit to symbolize the impact of his teachings, as his passing left such a light behind. Many candles and or bonfires are lit. Oh boy. There's something very ritualistic and pagan about that. Well, it's not even a big mystery. It definitely is pagan. But since we see that the lighting of bonfires is a crucial part in the Lag BaOmer, now let's move forward and get some information on Beltane to see the correlation. All right, let's get to it. So this is information on the pagan festival of Beltane, and it reads, Beltane is the Gaelic May Day festival. Most commonly, it is held on the 1st of May, or about halfway between the spring equinox and summer solstice. Historically, it is widely observed throughout Ireland, Scotland, and the Isles of Man. Okay? So I want to point out that it says it's most commonly held on the 1st of May. Okay, now the 1st of May was this past Saturday. Okay, and the incident that happened in Israel on what they call Lag BaOmer happened on April 30th, which is the eve of Beltane. Okay, so everything is linking up perfectly this year. The Lag BaOmer, which is the 33rd day in the Omer, it landed on the eve of Beltane this year, which leads me to believe, in my critique, that the people that died there were a sacrifice for Beltane. Okay? So now let's continue on. I'm going to jump down to the second paragraph because this is actually what I want to touch on. And it reads, Beltane is mentioned in some of the earliest Irish literature and is associated with important events in Irish mythology, also known as the first of summer. It marked the beginning of summer, and it was when cattle were driven out to the summer pastures. Rituals were performed to protect the cattle, crops, and people, and to encourage growth. Special bonfires were kindled, and their flames, smoke, and ashes were deemed to have protective powers. Let's stop right here. So we see that bonfires is a special part of Beltane, the same way that bonfires are a special part of what they call Lag BaOmer. Okay, that's not a coincidence. They're both pagan in its roots, because when you're dealing with the log BaOmer, like I said, that has nothing to do with the Bible. It has nothing to do with Torah or Tanakh. Okay, this is something that they made up outside of the scriptures. Okay, it's pure evil. All right. So scrolling down a bit, let's deal with the part about Beltane where it speaks on bonfires. And it reads, bonfires continue to be a key part of the festival in modern era. All hearth fires and candles would be doused before the bonfires was lit, generally on a mountain or hill. Ronald Hutton writes that to increase the potency of the holy flames, in Britain at least, they were often kindled by the most primitive of all means, of friction between wood. In the 19th century, for example, John Ramsay describes Scottish Highlanders kindling a need fire or force fire at Beltane. Such a fire was deemed sacred because, again, this is pagan. Okay, bonfires are associated with Beltane for a number of reasons. And for brothers that, deal with the scriptures, you read about the pagan god Baal, which is, in some instances, he's also known as Baal. That's where you get Beltane from. Okay, it's linked to the horned god Baal. The horned god Baal is associated with fire. Okay, he's a so-called sun god. And when you read the scriptures, I want to say it's Jeremiah, the 19th chapter. You read about how some of our ancestors actually sacrificed our sons in the fire to Baal. Okay, so I hope you brothers see how this is actually linking up. All right. So scrolling down a bit, there's one more thing I want to touch on. And it says, smoke blew over them and their cattle. When the bonfire had died down, people would daub themselves with its ashes and sprinkle it all over their crops and livestock. Burning torches from the bonfire would be taken home, where they would be carried around the house or boundary of the farmstead, and would be used to relight the hearth. From these rituals, it is clear that the fire was seen as having protective powers. Similar rituals were part of May Day, Midsummer, or Easter customs in other parts of the British Isles and mainland Europe. Now, for brothers and sisters that's still within Christianity, you should be asking yourself, why would this pagan custom of bonfires be associated with Easter when Easter supposedly is supposed to be a Christian custom? That's some homework for you brothers. But I think this is actually a good place to stop part one. And I think I've laid out the groundwork, and I'm actually going to get into part two. All right. Shalom, brothers.